Latvia is sending another 1,500 drones to Ukraine as part of the drone coalition. On his X page, the country's Minister of Defense, Andris Spruds, shared photos of a truck loaded with drones heading for Ukraine. He also added that in the first half of this year, 2 Latvian companies will send Kyiv a total of 12,000 drones worth 17 million euros as part of the international drone coalition. Military teams from a number of countries will gather to discuss the possibility of deploying a peacekeeping contingent to Ukraine, stated President Zelenskyy. During a joint press conference with the German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock, he said that the meeting will take place on Friday, April 4th.
There will be a meeting of military teams from several countries, a narrow circle of countries, those who will be ready to deploy a contingent in one form or another, because there is a ground forces part, there's an air part, and there is a presence at sea.
According to Zelenskyy, this will be the first in-depth discussion based on proposals prepared by the Ukrainian side. Kyiv shared information with Washington regarding all of Russia's violations on Ukraine's energy sector. This was stated by President Zelenskyy in his evening address. He stressed that the unconditional cessation of strikes proposed by the United States is not being implemented solely because of Russia's position.
There were strikes, and today again there was a strike in Kherson. A Russian drone targeted an energy facility and equipment entirely deliberately and purposefully. Part of the city was left without electricity. We insist that every such violation must be documented and receive a response from our partners. It is precisely these small details that add up to Russia's major delays in diplomatic process.
8 people, 3 children among them, were injured after Russian forces launched a massive drone strike on the city of Kharkiv. At least 15 explosions were heard overnight. The attack targeted 2 civilian enterprises, sparking fires.
The enterprises were operational. They had regular day shifts, they were civilian enterprises, they produced sleds, polypropylene, and non-military products.
The Russian attack also damaged private houses. According to the regional governor, the youngest injured is a 9-month-old infant.
It was horrible. The drones were buzzing overhead, they fell and exploded. I couldn't count how many there were. Maybe 15, maybe 20. There were a lot.
Germany has initiated its first foreign military deployment since World War II, wrote Politico on Tuesday. A tank brigade consisting of 5,000 personnel will be stationed in Lithuania, aiming to strengthen NATO's eastern flank in response to Russia's ongoing war against Ukraine. According to a German military lobbying group, Politico reports the newly created 45th Armored Brigade was formally commissioned during a ceremony near Vilnius. The brigade has a clear mission: to ensure the protection, freedom, and security of Lithuania on NATO's eastern flank, told the newly appointed brigade commander to the DPA news agency. U.S. Senators Republican Lindsey Graham and Democrat Richard Blumenthal proposed 500% tariffs on countries purchasing Russian oil and gas, announced Blumenthal's official website on Tuesday. These sanctions, backed by 50 other U.S. senators, would be enforced if peace negotiations fail or if an agreement is reached but then violated by Russia. The dominating view in the U.S. Senate is that Russia is the aggressor, and that this horrific war and Putin's aggression must end and be deterred in the future, the statement reads. Ukraine marks 3 years since the liberation of the Kyiv region from the Russian troops. The operation lasted for 38 days, from the beginning of the full-scale invasion to the complete expulsion of Russians from the capital region. Reflecting those days, the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, Alexander Syrsky, who then served as commander of Ukraine's ground forces, stated that military intelligence had indicated that Kyiv would be one of the key directions of the initial Russian assault, and preparations for its defense began shortly before February 24th. Syrsky underscored that Ukraine's armed forces fought without Western weapons at that stage, but it had become clear that Ukrainians could defend their country and independence, and that they would. He also emphasized that victory in the Kyiv operation did not only become a major military success, but also a powerful signal to the world that Ukraine is fighting. Ukraine cannot be broken. Ukraine is capable of winning, and Ukraine will win. North Korean forces have sustained heavy casualties in support of Russia's military operations in Ukraine, with over 5,000 troops reported killed or injured in the Kursk region. This figure was shared by the UK Defense Intelligence on their X page. The losses represent nearly half of the alleged 11,000 DPRK troops initially deployed, with casualties primarily resulting from large attritional ground assaults. Approximately a third of all the casualties were killed in action. The statement also says that open source reports suggest that North Korea has sent a limited number of additional troops to reinforce its positions in the Kursk region. A Ukrainian Mig-29 pilot took down 2 Russian attack drones in one sortie, reported the Ukrainian Air Force Command on Wednesday. The pilot went into the nitty-gritty of his daily activities, revealing that Ukrainian fighter pilots are accustomed to striking Russian fortified positions by day, then act as air defense at night, defending civilian infrastructure from Russian aerial threats. The ace pilot, with call sign Denfix, already executed more than 20 takedowns of various Russian cruise missiles and strike drones, adding that his will to defend his country is as stalwart and steadfast as ever. The recruitment of the Women's Unmanned Systems Unit called Harpies was announced by the Unmanned Systems Forces on Wednesday. The commander of this unit, Daria, with call sign Dishaka, was an active participant in the Revolution of Dignity. Since the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion, she has been taking part in combat missions with several special units.
It's much safer than being a stormtrooper or a scout. The course is very well organized and explains everything from beginning to end. After the training, you get a pilot who can go and work.
Although the unit includes men, the role of pilot will only be performed by women. Among the aerial means that may be used are FPVs, heavy bombers, and attack UAVs. Nearly 1/4 of those recruited by Russian intelligence services for operations in Ukraine are minors, under the age of 18. They're being used to prepare for sabotage or terrorist attacks, reported Artem Yekhterenko, spokesperson for Ukraine's security service, in the interview with Radio Free Europe. According to him, 22% of the perpetrators the security service exposed are minors, while 55% are unemployed and 7% have prior criminal records.
The youngest executors of Russian orders, whom the SSU exposed on the arson of Ukrzaliznytsia relay cabinets, were 13-year-old teenage agents. The oldest was a 52-year-old man who tried to plant explosives in Dnipro. Russia mostly recruits minors, the unemployed, and people with various types of addictions, such as drug, alcohol, and gambling.
Yekhterenko added that while arson attacks on Ukrainian armed forces vehicles and railway sabotage activities intensified in May 2024, recruitments for organizing explosions, including minors, began at the start of this year. At least 2 people were injured as a result of a Russian attack on the city of Kharkiv on Wednesday afternoon. A drone struck the 8th floor of a 16-story residential building in the Kyivsky district, reported the city mayor Igor Terkhov. A 65-year-old woman and a 10-year-old boy sustained shrapnel wounds. Terkhov also stated that the windows in the building were shattered and at least 6 cars parked in the yard were damaged.
Using a Molniya UAV, the Russians struck the 8th floor of a 16-story residential building. The explosion severely damaged the wall of the building and the apartment itself. 5 people were wounded at the scene.